I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Every man has a duty to question the lies. When DC turns its back and looks us in the eyes, the deep state had changed, but we shattered every link. Now the engine is roaring, full throttle, no blame. They mocked us from their towers while the country nearly fell, but the fire in us answered, red, white, and blue as hell. From the mountains to the prairies, hear the thunder in the streets. A million boots marching to the same damn beat. We are the Patriot Confederation. We are the Patriot Confederation. The Patriot Confederation, we are the Patriot Confederation. They called us conspiracy theorists, tried to bury the flame, but the flame became wildfire, and we're done with the shame. Washington's courage, Jefferson's pen, Declaration of Independence, let it ring again. The Constitution's promise, Bill of Rights held high, Old Glory still waving through the smoke in the sky. This is bigger than parties, bigger than pride. It's the soul of a nation that they try to divide. When the eagle screams and the Liberty Bell rings, we'll defend what I found is built with everything. No more shadow, no more lies. Look up, brothers and sisters, see the fire in our eyes. We are the Patriot Confederation. We are the Patriot Confederation. We are sworn to the Constitution till the day that we die. The Patriot Confederation, forever we rise.
As the Patriot Confederation, we do not bend, we do not break. We stand on the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. Liberty will never fall.
This is the Patriots Prayer Network, where truth matters.
The following is a presentation of AOW Productions.
The views and opinions by the hosts and guests of this program do not reflect those of the Patriots Prayer Network, its owners and/or associates. Copyright disclaimer. Under Section 107 Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
Every patriot has an obligation to question authority. Those who are honest are not concerned with your watchful vigilance, and those with integrity are not concerned with your discernment. Every American is obligated to voice their concerns and stand up for their freedoms and liberties.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are the men in the arena. We are the Patriot Confederation.
We will never back down from a fight. We're undefeated Americans.
In shadows forged by ancient lies, a spark ignites, the veil shall rise. Welcome, everybody, to Patriot Confederation for what is the 28th of July, 2026. I'm your host, Bad Billy, out of Twin Falls, Idaho, joined as always by John Grosvenor out of Nashua, New Hampshire, New England area. How you doing up there, brother?
I'm doing, Billy, just fighting here with Facebook because Facebook don't want to work with StreamYard. It absolutely stinks.
Working with mine, I don't know what's going on there, but yeah, it will do that once in a while. I know that, but real quick before we get to the end of the show, I'll say for the first time, I don't have guests scheduled for next week because I'm working on getting those New Hampshire candidates before the primary, and probably the first one we're going to talk to is Sue DeLemus.
All right, cool.
And if you remember Jerry DeLemus, we talked to him 3 years ago.
Yep, I remember Jerry. I'm friends with him on Facebook.
Yes. Have you met him in person yet?
No, I have not.
Yeah, because I know he doesn't live too far from you, too.
He lives about an hour away, I think.
Then again, New Hampshire is a very, very small state. So,
well, try driving sometimes. You know, it's like what takes me 10 miles could be a half hour in New Hampshire. I used to be able to go from New Smyrna Beach, Florida to Orlando, Florida, 70 miles away, be there an hour on my motorcycle. Here, it'd take me a half hour just to get 10 miles.
Well, traffic's always a different story, but when we're talking miles and circumference, that radius right there, New Hampshire's a small place.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is like Einstein here. It's all relative.
Yes, indeed. Well, joining us this week, I want to welcome back Chuck Weise. Of course, he's a former meteorologist, former airline pilot, and climate change expert, one of the very best I've ever talked to. Chuck, thank you very much for joining us. How are you today, sir?
Very well. Glad to be here, guys. Glad to help out.
Absolutely. So when it comes to the state of Oregon, it's like, I don't know, are they like who's in competition for the dumbest, whether it be Minnesota keep competing with California but New York, but Oregon's right up there in that top 5. I mean, a state
we seem to be in a race to the bottom, competing with Washington and California. It's very embarrassing. I'm very embarrassed I love this state, but I'm embarrassed as to what the political class is doing to it and will like to continue to do to it. It's just shameful.
It most definitely is. Of course, when you talk about Washington, well, I've got my cousin who lives in Aberdeen, and he sent me a picture that I couldn't stop laughing at that said, Taxington, the Evergreen State.
Yes, it's about it for Oregon, too. It's terrible.
The solution to all problems is taxes, right?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, but to start things out, one bill that I know I was talking a lot about on social media when it first struck the news, of course, is this thing they called IP-28. Of course, this would make it illegal to hunt, fish, or even farm. I mean, they took it so far. Yeah, no hunting, no fishing. How stupid is this? Is that you can't introduce a mare to a stallion for breeding because that mare didn't give you consent, but yet I don't know. I think when the mare goes into heat, she's given consent. Is it?
I don't recall any stallions asking for permission. They just mount and go.
Yeah, they do.
Well, it's nature.
Yeah. Or you can't real quick, you can't milk a cow because you didn't have permission to touch them.
Yeah, exactly. What can I say? The sponsor of this thing is incredibly stupid or naive. I don't know, which words or adjectives you want to use to best describe him. But the nice thing about it, guys, is that for those who haven't heard, this petition or gathering or this potential law that they wanted to pass and put out to the voters, they did not collect enough signatures to put it on the ballot. So it's like 11,000 short. That was what I heard this morning. And the state of Oregon said there was a lot of duplicates. I think there was a lot of cheating going on by the people that were sponsoring it because they hoped to get it across the finish line. Either that or the people gathering signatures weren't smart enough to see they had a lot of duplicates and they turned them in. And luckily, the state did disqualify it on that. So we don't have to worry about it this time around. It failed to make the ballot. We're not going to be voting on it this November. And all the hunting and fishing rights that we've known and enjoyed for so long in the state are still there. And we'll continue on with that. But the petitioner said he's not giving up. He's going to try this again, if you can believe that. And
that little idiot. Yeah.
Yeah. And in a state where we've got an abundance of wildlife to hunt and fish during the appropriate seasons, I mean, this thing was just crazy. I mean, if it had actually passed and it became a law under the guise of protecting animal rights, you would, if you had to live this way across all 50 states, people would starve to death because the only way you could get protein, if my understanding of that is correct, is through plant-based stuff. And I don't think that there would be enough of that to feed the entire country. This is how dumb these people are. They don't realize animal protein is a significant part of the American diet, and this would have pretty much outlawed it. I mean, it was crazy. I don't know what these people are thinking. And the only thing I can come up with is the left nowadays seems to be taken over by these radical communists. And what they want to do is piece by piece dismantle and destroy the country. And this is one component of it, had it ever become law. And if the people of the state were dumb enough to ever vote it in, that would have caused enormous harm to the food industry in the state of Oregon. It would have been terrible. But I'm so happy that it didn't qualify, and now we don't have to worry about it. So we're back to square one with these people.
Well, number one, when it comes to communism, I mean, come on, even back in Russia, I mean, even the days of the Cold War and under Stalin and all that, people fished. Stalin loved fishing. So this is just this is a whole different, more terrifying type of communism. Number two, if this bill were to pass and then make it to the ballots and then they actually win, it would bankrupt the state of Oregon, because there's Charleston, Oregon, which is right there in the Coos Bay North Bend area. You drive through that town, and it's all docks and boats right there on the bay, and the air just stinks like dead fish, and that's because in places like Charleston, fishing is not a hobby like it is for me. And I catch and release because I don't like to eat them anyway. But no, those people there, they fish for a living. That's an industry. So that would help bankrupt out and cut out the food supply. As you said, it would have been totally disastrous.
Yeah, and on the Oregon coast, I mean, the fishing industry harvests a lot of different types of fish. I see the fishing boats out there at night going out there for halibut and tuna, and they're out there with doing that in addition to some salmon fishing that they do closer in when the salmon come in close to the shores. So there's all kinds of fishing. There's trout. There's Mackinaw. There's all kinds of fish that are harvested in the state of Oregon, and that would have been outlawed. Along with, you can't take livestock, for example, and slaughter it to produce beef, or slaughter chickens to be able to get chicken. I mean, they would have just clamped the whole thing down. It's just insane. And I just can't imagine for the life of me what this guy was thinking, other than the fact that if you want to take a look at it as logically as you can, it's a form of wanting complete control over the citizenry and complete control over industries. And by destroying this, they just get one step closer to that, which is a form of communism. It is. That's what the left is turning into. These people are absolutely out of their minds.
And I think, I know you've spent significant time in the Portland area too. And one thing I can remember from living in Portland, moving there from Coos Bay, is that even there, even though that's not on the coast, that's not near the ocean at all. But I remember seeing a lot of fishing boats there in Portland at the Willamette.
Yes, there are. A lot of those are recreational. The big commercial guys, they go for the big catches where they can find them elsewhere. But it would have outlawed all that too. I mean, just doing your own fishing and trying to catch fresh seafood for yourself, that would have been against the law had this thing ever passed from the ballot. But, if it would have made the ballot, as dumb as some people seem to be that think this is a good idea because it was always under the guise of we're going to protect animal rights. That's where all this came from. We're going to protect animal rights. Even with those people thinking along those lines, I don't think that they could have had enough citizens in this state that would have fallen for that and actually voted for it had it made the ballot. Because the fact that it didn't just goes to show when they were out there trying to collect signatures, they had a lot of people shaking their heads going, I'm not going to sign that. Are you kidding me? I mean, that's crazy. So they had trouble even getting, collecting signatures. So hopefully this is just one very rare individual who's got a lot of dumb ideas that are never going to become law in the state. We hope. That's all I can say about it. I'm just glad that it's not a problem now. It's not going to not even be voted on.
Well, I'll say this before we go to our first break too, is, I was just watching a video because I'm an old UFC fan, and Mark the Hammer Coleman, I guess, he's now into fasting, and at 60 years old, he's looking healthier than ever. But that doesn't mean he cuts the meat out of his diet. Yeah, he goes out in the sun and gets the energy from the sun and meditates and does all that. But no, the meat's still in his diet. He really just doesn't eat breakfast. He just, he meditates in the morning. He has dinner at night when the sun's down.
Yeah. Well, personally, I don't, I have meat and fish in my diet. I think it's essential to your health. I mean, there's a lot of discussion and has been from cardiac surgeons that eating too much red meat is not good for you. In fact, I talked to one who said that a long time ago when I was many years younger and weighed less than I do now. And he convinced me that, don't eat too much of that. So I've steered away from some of that, but I eat a lot of animal-based proteins, whether it's chicken or fish. And that's mainly my diet now. And then every now and then I'll have a steak and eat beef. But it's all there, and I think that's essential for human health, no matter which one of those three that you might decide to get it from. If you're a vegetarian, I don't know. I've had these people swear by vegetarian diets. I'm not a subscriber, and I don't think it's healthy to just live solely on a vegetarian diet and no protein from animal sources. But that's just me. Maybe some people can do it and live a long time, but I don't know. I've seen a lot of people that are on strict vegetarian diets, and they don't look that healthy to me. They look underweight, and they just don't look as healthy as people who have a more diverse source of protein that they can pull into their diet that would come from chicken, fish, or beef.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. They're strict vegetarians that you might think they have AIDS by looking at them. Yeah.
yeah. It's just
Anyway,
to each his own, I guess. But I'm not a subscriber to strictly that kind of a diet. I've never had that in my life, and don't plan on changing.
Well,
and both of my parents lived to ripe old ages. My mom lived to be over 100 years old before she passed, and she had a regular diet of beef, chicken, and fish all the time too. When we did as kids, that's what they raised us on.
I think vegetarians can get a lot of protein from things like nuts and beans. I don't know if it's the same types of proteins you get from meats, but I'll tell you what, man, my taste buds thank me for the beef and the ribs and the pork and chicken. I can't go without beef or without meat.
Well, everything in moderation. If they tell you to watch out for saturated fat, just plan your diets accordingly, and I think you'll be fine.
Yes.
So
that's the first segment. We're going to go ahead and take our first break. And when we come back, talk a little bit about the Oregon primary that was back in May, same day we had in Idaho, because I want to give some of my 2 cents on that. And, of course, the climate protection program. Oh, boy. So with that said, we'll be back in a minute and a half.
Here in Hut, this is Gunnery Sergeant Buffalo Blackstone. The best cigars I've had recently are from Patriot Cigar Company. Get yourself some Patriot cigars by going to www.mypatriotcigars.com. And you can help out my friend Bad Billy by using the promo code OUTLAW when you place your order, and you will get 15% off your purchase. You maggots must be at least 21 years of age to purchase Patriot cigars. Hoorah! Simplify!
Have you ever wondered why so much of what you hear in the media feels filtered or even manipulated? The truth is, most major news outlets are controlled by collectivists, people who think it's their duty to shape what you believe. So the common man ends up with a so-called correct opinion. At NeedToKnow.News, we do things differently. We provide unfiltered news and commentary as an antidote to the mainstream's newspeak. Here, there are no distractions with sports or celebrity gossip. Instead, we focus on what truly matters: your freedom, your health, and your financial security. And while we stand for individualism, we promise this: we'll never twist the facts just to fit our view. Even if the truth is uncomfortable, we'll report it anyway and let truth have its voice. Join thousands who refuse to be misled. Sign up for the NeedToKnow.News newsletter today and start seeing the world as it really is.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Once again, we're joined by Chuck Weise. Of course, like I said, former meteorologist, former airline pilot, and climate change expert. Now, just want to talk a little bit about the Oregon primary that was back in May. And Chuck, this is how I feel about it when it comes especially to your candidates you had for governor, especially the Republican candidates. I mean, any one of them, of course, I'm sure would be better than Kotek. But
she's one that I think a lot of people, even Democrats, the ones that aren't communists or socialists, think that she's got to go. She's managed the state very poorly. We've had a lot of problems because of her stupid policies.
Absolutely. So when I look at Chris Dudley, I mean, he sounds good when he's talking, but I look at him in the same light that I look at Mike Lindell. You know, I know Mike Lindell, if any Republican's going to win Minnesota, it's definitely going to be him. But Chris Dudley and Mike Lindell, I just look at them in the same light. And I mean, no disrespect to Mike Lindell, because I'm affiliated with My Pillow, but I don't think that he's going to make a very good leader. Yeah, he's a great business owner. Well, some of that's questionable too, because he's in a lot of debt. You know, whereas I personally endorsed Brad Kohler for governor of Minnesota, because even though you've never heard of him, he's a former UFC fighter. That's that right there. Just look him up. He had one of the most devastating knockouts in UFC history that you can still see the highlight to this day. But when you hear Brad talking, Brad has a plan. I mean, for Minnesota's economy and trying to take care of voter integrity, where Mike Lindell, all I hear him talking about is the voting machines, and he's only about voter integrity, and there's got to be more to it. And like Chris Dudley, he didn't seem to have a plan for Oregon, whereas Ed Deal did, and that's why I endorsed Ed Deal. Your take?
Well, I agree with your sentiments there. I would have preferred to see Ed Deal get the GOP nomination to run against Tina Kotek, but he didn't. Instead, we got Christine Drazen. And Chris Dudley, he ran. I don't know if you remember, but he ran for the governor's race, and actually he was the GOP contender back in 2010. And everybody thought back then that he was going to win the 2010 election, because I was there at the Monarch Hotel at his campaign headquarters during the election night, and he was comfortably ahead of John Kitzhaber, who was his Democratic contender. And at the end of the night, I went to bed thinking that this is really cool. We're going to get somebody to replace Kitzhaber, because Kitzhaber became a corrupt governor. We seem to have a problem with that in the state of Oregon. And the next morning, I wake up and turn the radio on, and lo and behold, all of a sudden, oh gee, it's the Oregon Elections Department saying, all of a sudden in Multnomah County, which is the biggest county in Oregon, found 22 or 25,000 ballots that weren't counted, and they got to be counted. And so they counted those, and Chris lost his lead because it was just about maybe 10,000 votes or something. And then Kitzhaber pulls ahead and ends up winning the race. Now, I don't care, Chris never challenged that. If it was me, I definitely would have, because I think there was foul play there. How do you end up with 22,000 votes, all of them being for Kitzhaber? Suddenly they just appear out of nowhere, and they say, oh, we forgot to count these. It'd be one thing if they were a mix, but they all went to Kitzhaber, and he ends up winning the race. And I think he stole it by election cheating back then. And Chris wouldn't challenge it. He just moved on. And when he resurfaced this time for running, you're right, he doesn't have a real good plan, didn't have a real solid plan put together that people could think about and go, yeah, you've convinced me you're the best candidate for the job. He entered the race late, and I wanted to know, and I had a chance to talk with him actually at a meeting he was at, and asked him what he thought of that 2010 race where he had these ballots show up that stole it from him the following day. And I also wanted to know whether he thought Joe Biden won 2020 fair and square. And, his answer was, well, I wouldn't go so far as to say it was stolen from me. And I thought to myself, well, good grief, Chris, what does that mean? I mean, he just came across weak and unwilling to call a spade the way I saw things. And he didn't challenge the result back in 2010. And so I was kind of glad to hear that he was kind of in the race, but that was before Ed Deal announced his candidacy. And when Ed did his and made his speeches, he had a pretty good plan put together that he was going to do to fix a lot of Oregon's problems. And that was the difference between those two candidates. Well, we ended up with Christine Drazan, who was also in the third GOP contender, and she won, and now she's going to be the one that goes up against Tina Kotek this fall. She's better than Kotek, but the thing I didn't like about her is somebody asked her the same question about elections and said, did Joe Biden win 2020? And she said, and the question was, did he win fair and square? Her answer was, yes, he did. And I thought, okay, I've studied that enough after 2020 to know there was plenty of problems. And I don't think you can say that with any sort of confidence. I don't think Biden did win 2020 fair and square. There was a ton of people who dug into the election stuff, and it was hard to put a finger on things because they blocked us. They blocked the ability to get a lot of the election data. But you've heard about all the anomalies that went on in states like Pennsylvania and New York, some of the real big eastern states during that election, that all these shenanigans were going on that could have easily caused the race to be stolen from Trump. So my opinion about that is pretty much unchanged, but it bothers me that people running today are scared to say, yeah, there was a lot of problems with the elections, and we haven't straightened them out. That's what this Save America's Act is all about now. So that's kind of my opinion about the candidates we have running in Oregon. I think Deal would have been the best candidate. That's what you agreed with me on. And as far as Mike Lindell goes, I don't know a lot about Mike, but he is a businessman. He's been real big on election integrity, which I like. I like that in terms of what he stands for. But let me put it this way. If he was the only one running and he was a GOP contender, would you vote for him to replace the idiots we have in Minnesota now?
Yeah, absolutely. And no doubt about that, especially after this stupid doll thing that I don't know, that makes me angry, and I don't want to get into that about the dolls. But John, you also know of somebody else too, who of course he first said that the 2020 election was stolen, but what cost him his race against Maggie Hassan was, he said it wasn't stolen, which, I mean, I would honestly, when it comes to courage and integrity, I would expect more from a general than that, to be honest with you. I like Bolduc, but that kind of disappointed me when he said that.
Oh, I think that kind of hurt him. I think he got bad advice in his own party, told him that was going to cost him the election, so he backpedaled on it just to save face, and I think it cost him the election in the end.
Yeah. I mean, oh man, I'd still like to talk to him sometime. If he's kind of laying low anymore, isn't he?
He does not want to be bothered with it anymore. I reached out to one of his campaign members for this election, asking if it's possible to get him to run again. And she pretty much just stopped talking to me. I think it was before the Christmas holidays. And she assured me he is not interested in running again or have anything to do with him, because his own support. This is the problem. We shoot ourselves in the foot because he was still a good candidate, but his own followers or supporters turned tail on him. Not because of that, Billy, because when the election was over, the election integrity group wanted him to do a recount. They wanted to because they're looking for election fraud and stuff. They don't seem to understand the cost, the time, the energy, the effect of doing a recount, unless you got if it's a real tight election, you can do that, right? And it makes sense. But that big of a gap, it didn't make sense, and it was just going to put him on the spot even more.
Yes. Well, and when it comes to Chris Dudley, I mean, honestly, I wasn't paying attention to politics, and nor was I living in the state of Oregon back in 2010. But given the stories that I read, that he didn't even have the courage to contest the results of that election when he had a comfortable lead, going to bed and waking up finding out he lost.
Yeah. Oh. And then answering when that question was put to him that, well, I wouldn't go that far, when the question was, do you think that was stolen from you? He said that about his own race and also whether Joe Biden won in 2020. And we know there's and that's another thing that didn't impress me this time around with Chris. Now, back in 2010, he was younger, and I think he appealed more to the sports audience because, he was a former Portland Trailblazer basketball star. And so people liked him just because he was an athlete, and he seemed to have a better business mind in 2010. I think he could have been made a good governor, but he entered so late and this time around and just didn't have answers people were looking for. I'm not sure what he would have really done had he become the contender and even won a race against Tina Kotek. But we know we've got serious election problems in the state of Oregon. I don't know if you guys knew this, but they found out, the Judicial Watch people found out, and of course other people did too that have looked into this, that Oregon at one point had more registered voters than citizens on their voter rolls. And that's crazy. It's impossible. And they got sued by Judicial Watch because they refused to remove those people off the ballots. And it took a lawsuit and a settlement to be able to get them to even begin to clean this up. And now they're still clawing and scratching, trying to keep the rolls, I think, as dirty as they can. And there's only one reason, if you just look at this logically, why somebody would want to do that, and that's to cheat. I mean, why else would you do that?
Hey, now, Chuck, you know, dead people's voting rights matter too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there were dead people on the voter rolls. There were people that moved. I mean, this whole thing was so crazy. And you had the Secretary of State back then saying, oh, no, our elections in Oregon are secure. That's just a load of malarkey. I mean, it really is. And only a fool would believe something like that when the statistics are right in front of you showing you've got all these people on your voter rolls and you won't remove them. Why not? And they don't have an answer. So they had to, they got sued and now they have to do it. But I'm not sure if the rolls will be as clean as they should be by the time our midterms come around. I mean, all these blue states are still scratching and clawing, trying to keep things as dirty as they can, because I think they definitely want to make sure, they're trying to make sure they win the midterm election so that they can throw a monkey wrench into the remaining 2 years of President Trump's agenda. And so that's why the Save America Act is, I think, is very important. And it's like President Trump had said with this, one of the main things it does is just simply require people to have to show ID and citizenship to be able to cast a ballot. Why wouldn't you want to do that when you've got to show ID to practically do any other thing in this state, including travel and a host of other things? And for some reason, if you take a look at these people on the left, they're going, oh, no, that's just unconstitutional. It's asking people to do too much to show an ID. And some people would have to re-register to vote. Well, that's your civic responsibility. And what the left seems to want to do with all this voting stuff is they want convenience to supersede security. And it should be the other way around. At all costs, you should make sure that nobody casts a ballot that isn't qualified to do that. And if that means you lose some total voters because they're too lazy to go out and make sure that they're going to register to vote, then so be it. Then those people probably shouldn't vote anyway. That's the way I see it. And they're saying, oh, no, everybody's got to cast a ballot. Well, why? That's the way I look at that.
Don't you like that leftist argument that it's going to marginalize women? What if they get married? Then they won't be able to vote. It's like, they could just put an amendment in, right? And then pass the bill. They could say, well, we should have amendment. This is what you have discussions for. This is why you have House floor discussions and stuff. So you say, well, we might need an amendment for this. We might need an amendment for that to shore things up, to make sure we're protecting people's right to vote. No, they want to whine and complain about it on social media that we should just shoot down the whole thing because, like you said, they don't really want it because they can't cheat off it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's going to be made, if it passes, to where if you're handicapped or somehow disabled, or if you're in the military and you're overseas, they've made provisions for all of that to where you'll be allowed to cast a ballot, by mail. You just have to prove what your disability is. And of course, they know if you're in the military and if you're disabled, same sort of thing. You just fill out a form that a doctor or something could verify, and then you would be allowed to cast a vote by mail ballot. Otherwise, you show up at a poll with your ID and this sort of thing. And that's the way it was done in the old days. Before Oregon went to vote by mail, we had our own precincts. We went down to them. We had to show our ID. Your name, if you were registered to vote, was on the voter rolls for the precinct you went to. And after you match your ID to that name on the rolls, you get a ballot. You cast it while you're there and you turn it in. And then the ballots are counted at each one of the precincts. And then that sum is given to the county The county sends the precinct totals, and then the counties send that to the Secretary of State, and then each county has a total that is tallied as a final total for the whole state as all the counties are added up. And then you cross-check everything, and it makes, when you're doing it this way, it makes the arithmetic much easier to do than having one centralized place where all these ballots show up. You got all this extra counting to do. If it's fractionalized and you've got each party double checking the answers from each precinct, that's a safer, more secure way to do it. And that's the way it was done in this state before they changed everything. And now they want to centralize it. And that just makes it easier to cheat. And it makes it easier or harder to catch machine algorithm errors too. If when you're looking at that, if you had to go do a complete audit. So this is what we should be doing. And it's just amazing that anybody who is against that, in my opinion, is just being dishonest.
Wait a minute. Should machines have algorithms when it comes to counting votes? Should it be pretty simple?
What I meant was the counting algorithm. But, if there's a problem with that and it's not processing it correctly, it's easier to catch it when you're fractionalizing votes and adding them up. It makes it harder for the machine to be able to err without it being caught. And I think that's the way they should be doing it.
You're right. They can also, they should be inspected for tampering, because it has been proven time and again that anybody can stage a machine or set up a machine so it'll come out with the vote counts that you want. So it'll take votes that you vote that people voted for, but accredit them to his opponent.
Yeah, exactly. And they told us that our machines were air gapped and there's no way that they could be intercepted by the internet during a trial that we had about that here in Washington County out in Oregon. And then one of the people in charge of the voting machines admitted that you can transmit and get information from the machines via the internet. So a complete contradiction to things. So there's just an incredible amount of hiding things and being dishonest. I'm the kind of guy, and I'm sure you guys would feel the same way. We should be allowed as citizens to kick the tires and look under the hood when we're looking at this voter stuff. We're all citizens. We have a right to demand voter integrity. And anybody who wants to hide that or have a government body come in and go, no, you can't see this, it would hurt the public confidence if we show you A, B, or C, is just being disingenuous. The reason why we want to see it is to make sure it's all correct. And anybody who argues against that, I just think is foolish. I mean, I don't know what their motives would be: dishonesty, wanting to cheat. I mean, those are the two things that come to top of mind. And we just got to make sure this stuff is straightened out. And the voter rolls were the thing that tipped a lot of us off in Oregon. What a big problem we have in this state is when you've got that many people on a voter roll that don't belong there, and then they refused to clean it up until they got sued.
So this country has a long history of corruption in many ways. And in some cases, like say in the 1880s, when they were expanding to the West and stuff and putting a lot of money into railroads, grant money and stuff, it became a free-for-all. People were grabbing grant money and it was going towards things it was never meant to go towards. It was going towards politicians and their campaigns. It was going, so the corruption was so bad, they went to investigate it. The deeper they got into the investigation, the worse it got. The worse it got, the bigger it got. It got so big that they realized that we can't investigate this. We're never going to find a conclusion to this. We'll investigate this for 100 years and never come to an end on it. So they just swept it under the rug. And I think that's what we're dealing with voter integrity is, millions of voters, 150 million or more voters. You're trying to investigate, count all these votes. You got algorithms, so machines are hard to catch. So all you got to do is match the vote count on paper to the algorithm you set on the machine. So when they come back to investigate it, the count's always going to come out the same. And that's what happened with the Cyber Ninja report in Arizona, didn't it? They come back and they said, well, the votes did come out the same. In fact, we found even more votes for Biden, which was kind of ironic in a way. But they also found anomalies. And they addressed the anomalies and so what they should do to shore up their election. So nothing was coming of it as far as prosecutions or looking for erroneous behaviors or anything like that. But they did find those, and they just advised them, this is what you need to do. And some of those things were stupid, like you were talking about, things that connected to the internet, things left open, keys to the machines that were left for anybody to grab them. They weren't secure because the keys are supposed to be just to the judge of elections alone, or however they do it in their state. And anybody could access these things. So you don't know who's having access to these machines and who isn't.
Yes. Well, real quick, we have to cut it there because we are way past the point where we need to take our second break. And when we come back, we got to get into the meat and potatoes of this conversation, which is, of course, the Climate Protection Act, or whatever this silly thing is that they want to try to push next. So with that said, we'll be back in about 2 minutes.
America's under attack, and they're all around us. I'm talking about liberal Democrats, and they're out to destroy everything that we've worked so hard for. Mammoth Nation's here to fight for you. You only get one vote, so let's join forces. We support conservative lawmakers and the causes you hold so dearly. We stand behind our police, veterans, the Second Amendment, and much more. We need your help, so join today.
Hey friend, have you heard of Q Broadcast? It's taking the world by storm. People are cutting the cord to their high cable bills and moving away from streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, and others for something better. Q Broadcast. For just $60 a month, you'll get access to every channel you could ever want. And the best part? There are no contracts, no hidden fees, and you're free to cancel anytime. With Q Broadcast, you can enjoy live streaming TV, movies, and top series on up to 5 devices at once. Whether you're at home or you're on the go, Q Broadcast makes sure your entertainment is always at your fingertips. That's right, you can watch all your favorite channels from anywhere at any time and with zero restrictions. Say goodbye to contracts, extra fees, hidden costs, and price hikes. Switch to Q Broadcast, save money, and get more content than ever before. Click the link in the description of this video or podcast and sign up for Q Broadcast today.
Running low on ammo or tired of scrambling every time prices go up? With Ammo Squared, you can build your ammunition stockpile automatically. Choose the calibers you shoot, set your budget, and Ammo Squared does the rest. Every month, your ammo balance grows. Buy when you're ready, store it securely, or have it shipped directly to your door where legal. No more panic buying, no more empty shelves. Just a smarter way to stay stocked and ready. Visit ammo2.me/outlaw today and start building your ammo reserve 1 round at a time. ammo2.me/outlaw. Ammo Squared. Stack deeper, shoot smarter.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and once again, we're joined by Chuck Weise. Now, of course, we only have about 8 minutes before we have to cue our final break, but, Chuck, last time you were on the show was for this very reason, of course, this climate protection, whatever it is, that they're trying to ram through. That was about a year and a half ago, maybe almost 2 years ago. And, I listened, of course, Dr. Mark Anderson had to replay a show because this thing, of course, didn't die in the water like IP-28. No, I mean, this thing is kind of resurfacing for attention once again. And, of course, when it comes to the whole thing of climate change and this hoax, of course, a lot of idiots want to listen to somebody like Greta Thunberg, who doesn't know what she's talking about. She's stupid, just like the guy who came up with this IP-28. She's utterly stupid. I mean, but what is the latest on this? I mean, this is coming up in some stuff in November, isn't it?
I'm not sure. I don't think we have anything in the Climate Protection Act coming up in the elections this fall. What happened was it was a Senate bill 2020. It was their proposal to enact their climate change policy on the state of Oregon, and it was basically amounted to a huge increase in the gas tax. The voters voted it down, and so what Tina Kotick did by executive order, she didn't accept the answer by the voters that we don't want this stuff. She crammed it down our throats by executive action. And so now these policies are clicking into place, which are causing our utility bills to rise. They're diverting money and they're spending it on all these ridiculous programs that aren't going to make an iota worth of difference to the climate, weather, or atmospheric CO2 levels. This thing started, the history of this, I could go on for an hour about the history of how this whole nonsense started. In my opinion, the CO2 climate change stuff from human emissions of CO2 is tantamount to the biggest fraud I think that we've ever experienced in terms of how it's pirated money from people and wasted it on all these ridiculous green energy programs, which aren't going to accomplish a single thing. And a long time ago, I was in the atmospheric science department at Oregon State University when this whole business about CO2 started. And it started from just a suspicion. You know, we were coming into the computer age, and people wondered, is the founding work that we did with respect to looking at CO2 and how it interacts with all the other greenhouse gases, are those theories correct, or is there something more to this? So they invented climate models, but the problem is they never beta tested any of them. And they started getting answers that were contradictory to founding principles, which did not suggest that atmospheric CO2 has any ability to control the Earth's temperature, the weather, or the climate, any of that stuff. It doesn't do it. And there's a lot of reasons why it doesn't do it. And people that say that it does don't even know how the greenhouse effect works. And so they've gone off on a tangent because of the results they got from climate models, and they didn't beta test them. So the politicians loved the answer that they got because it gave them the opportunity to start taxing and regulating carbon emissions, which in essence, to me, it's just like, okay, we're going to tax the air you breathe. It's going to have no effect to change anything. And in Oregon, they've passed these climate protection acts by executive action. And I've said it to many people many times. You could take all of Oregon's carbon emissions, which are like 60 million metric tons per year of CO2 in this state alone. That is only 0.16% or 0.16 of 1% of the total global emissions if you wiped all of it out, which would be physically impossible. And if you did these same programs across the entire country, that's 37% of global emissions, and you'd be committing a genocide to wipe all carbon emissions out in all 50 states. It's impossible to do. We're a carbon-rich planet. We live off the carbon cycle. And this whole idea where they made carbon a obnoxious poison of some kind that's got to be controlled is one of the most insane things I've ever heard, but that's what they've done. And they've had academics be dishonest about this, who are promoting it for the sake of getting money. This has meant a lot of research grants to the universities by saying that it's a problem and we think it's got to be somehow controlled. But yet if they come up with these ridiculous programs and you actually sit down and do the math about what effect they're going to have on atmospheric CO2 levels, you find this thing is completely wrong. And it wouldn't amount to being able to change much of anything, which brings you full circle back to this whole idea that we figured out a long time ago, that CO2 emissions are not causing the climate to change. They can't control temperature, weather, severe weather, anything like that because of the hydrological cycle or the interaction with water vapor and clouds. That's what really regulates things. And nothing has changed since then except these models that came out, and we know that they're in error. They've also engaged in cover-up to try to make the models look like they're performing better than they really are. But the bottom line is, these programs will have absolutely no effect on anything, and it doesn't matter what state you implement them in. It's a complete waste of money, and it's damaging our electric grid. Did you guys hear back in New York, because of the stupid green energy programs they got back there, in this last heat wave that they had just after the 4th of July, they had rolling blackouts in the city of New York because of the green energy. That's and so you got people they're sweltering, and they're talking about how dangerous 100-degree heat is with the humidities like they get back there, which can be true if you get exposed to it too long. But now here's these people, they can't even air condition their home because of rolling blackouts because of the green energy. They're supposed to be solving this problem. I mean, you just throw your hands up and just go, you people are out of your minds. This is not going to help any. It's hurting, if anything. And that's exactly what it's doing to every state that's going to try to implement green energy, because wind and solar cannot keep up with load demands on the electric grid if they continue to implement this stuff, and will cause these sorts of problems when we need energy to either heat your home or cool it, depending on what season that you're in. And so the way to solve this in Oregon is we got to get rid of this governor. She's corrupt. She does stupid things. All of the climate policies she's got are stupid. They won't make any difference to CO2 levels. And CO2 levels are not even completely governed here around the world by just human emissions of CO2. There's a natural component too, and they just ignore that. But it's very significant, and it minimizes the effect that we've actually had to raise the CO2 levels. They're not near what they claim they were. And they've always said, well, ever since the start of the Industrial Revolution, 100% of the CO2 increase is due to human emissions. That's not true. So you've also got that element of this. And so the whole, this whole green energy stuff is a disaster. And it should have never happened from day one. But the whole ugly history of it, taking these models, claiming they're good without beta testing them, and then the politicians acting on this, and the universities hyping it to be able to get more research grants. This thing is just a big money grubbing exercise. Then you got all the special interests that want to implement green energy. And if you want to put a solar panel up on your roof just to reduce your own electric bill a little bit, that's okay to do that in small ways, but it's not going to really make a big difference to the larger picture at all. You're not going to reduce CO2 emissions. You're not going to be able to do any of that. So everything is a failure. And yet they keep pushing forward and pushing forward. And if you take a look at this and pull it back into the political circle, why would they be doing this? Because this is what the left and the communists want to do. They want complete control over energy, just like they did food with this bill we talked about at the beginning. The whole idea is to control every aspect of your life to where you don't have any say about anything. And that's what they're doing. That's the whole reason for it. It has no scientific basis to it at all. It's not going to make any difference. The programs will fail, and yet they keep costing more and more money. We're paying more at the pump for a gallon of gas, just like Washington and California, than many other states. I think aviation fuel here in Oregon is now over $8.50 a gallon, just for aid gas. And we're close to $5 a gallon for regular gas. And the reason for that is these climate policies, the gas tax and the carbon taxes that they've tacked onto the cost of a gallon of fuel. So even with the war going on in the Middle East right now, our costs are going to stay higher, which fuels inflation for these very reasons. They're stupid policies. They're not going to make any difference to anything. And when the universities promote this, it's shameful. It's just shameful because you can show them where they're wrong. And that kind of breaks my heart because I'm an Oregon State University alumni, and I was in atmospheric science there. I learned so much from this and those programs. And now they've just absolutely inverted and just really destroyed a lot of the principles that we knew were true from atmospheric science. It's just terrible.
I have a question on this, but I think we have to go to break first.
Yeah, we got to take our final break, and we'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Sean Spicer, father of 2 elementary school age children. I don't even know that I have to open this. The hips on the drag queen go swish, swish, swish. Anti-racist baby. Yeah, I don't know how many babies come out racist. Babies are taught to be racist. Really? I'm not really sure that this is a subject that young kids are ready to adapt to. Most kids are innocent. This is not really, we're gonna need like psychiatric help after reading this book. Yeah, it's a hard no.
Your book that's coming out.
See, this is more like it. This is what you can read. It's very well illustrated too. Great story, great message. Now this is a book you can read your kids.
In 2026, America reaches her 250th year. But according to the authors, America is not dying of old age. She is being intentionally and methodically murdered from within. Liberal versus conservative, black versus white, Democrat versus Republican, the divisions are endless. Who is shaking the American jar? From crime to media influence, government power, constitutional rights, illegal immigration, and election integrity, the Democrat Murder of America examines what the authors believe are the forces reshaping the nation from within. The evidence is unmistakable and deeply troubling. This book seeks to first expose the truth and show that a peaceful and effective solution still exists. Time is of the essence. The Democrat Murder of America by Daniel Perkins and Sheriff Richard Mack. Available now.
Yes, indeed. Murder of America. Go to murderofamerica.com to get your copy of the Democrat Murder of America, because, it's tying into everything we're talking about on this program right here. And I'm going to say this really quick, John, before we get to your question, is, Chuck just talked about the rolling blackouts they're having in New York City. Well, right around Kami Mandami's election, I put a picture up on social media of a gravestone saying New York City died in 2025. And and an old friend of mine asked me, well, what if he makes New York better? And I said, it's not even up for argument. He's not going to make it better. He said, but what if he does? I said, he's not. That's my answer to your question. He's not. And what you just explained with the rolling blackouts further proves that I was right.
There is no expectation that he's going to make New York City better. However, we're talking about CO2, Chuck, and we produce CO2 for commercial purposes, correct? So we use it in soft drinks, and we use it in beers and different things, even air guns. And so CO2 gets used for a lot of commercial purposes, but we don't extract that out of the air, do we? And there's a reason for that. It's
no.
Go ahead.
Well, humans contribute. I think I saw a calculation where humans themselves, just without burning any fossil fuel, just by living, by breathing out CO2, that we contribute like 8% of the increase in atmospheric CO2. But I don't know. I have to check that against what the human component actually is, because it's not 100%. But we definitely do contribute to it. And this is a carbon, we live off of carbon. Without the carbon cycle, we die. And these people are crazy to think that somehow you're well, what they did was they made CO2 emissions what they call a climate thermostat. It's no such thing. It's never had the ability to control the Earth's temperature or climate, and it never will. And what people don't understand is, as a standalone, if you took all the CO2 off planet Earth and could live without a carbon cycle, as a standalone, it would affect the global temperature 3 degrees. If you took the water vapor and clouds, if we could live without water and took all that off of planet Earth, that would take 30 degrees centigrade off the realized gain from the greenhouse gases. So there you have a 3 to 30 ratio. It's obvious that water vapor and clouds are the elephant in the room that controls the radiation balance off the planet with the sun. CO2 is along for the ride. And these people are trying to tell us that CO2 is the tail wag, it's the tail wagging the dog, according to them, rather than the dog wagging the tail, which water vapor and clouds are. So the whole thing is just, it's very bad science. It should have never been twisted and contorted to the degree that it is, and it's the failed climate models that helped do this. Before those came along, we had it all figured out, and the radiation physics that we used to do it with were post-Einstein, so it was all correct, and it was only the modeling that came along with all the limitations we know about models that made all the mistakes that they did that have led us to where we're at now. And then these people are saying, well, the models are the best we got. Well, no, they're not. They're a complete failure, and you need to throw them out. They should be confined to a basement before they get perfected enough to where they can produce any reasonably good answers. But they never took the time to do that because they were too anxious to make a political football out of this, which is what they've done. And now they're ruining everything by all these stupid programs they've implemented, which aren't going to make any difference to anything. It's just unbelievable.
I believe the Earth's atmosphere consists of 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, 1% remaining is the other gases. CO2 is 0.04%. Would that be like a normal expectation of CO2 gases in the Earth's atmosphere for a healthy, normal environment?
Yeah, and we've had CO2 as high as 5,000 parts per million. It's at 425 right now. It's a trace gas. Yeah. And it'll stay a trace gas for the most part because we've got absorption ability by the Earth itself and the oceans and the land, that sort of thing. But that's all. The emission is temperature dependent. So as the climate warms some, they'll get more emission of CO2 from the land and oceans, which is the main reason why it's been going up over over a period of time. And then we contribute maybe at the most, maybe 25% of the increase since the start of the Industrial Revolution, but the rest of it's natural. And that's because of the ever-changing climate. And the big lie Al Gore told in his stupid movie, An Inconvenient Truth, was he showed the CO2 temperature relationship, and he didn't put in there that CO2 leads, it lags temperature, it doesn't lead it. So the temperature goes up first and CO2 follows. That's the way the Earth has always worked. It doesn't cause warming. It follows it, and that's because of the way the Earth behaves is oceans and land with respect to temperature. So if the climate warms, the CO2 isn't causing the climate to warm. It's a decreased Earth albedo. There could be a number of other factors that play into it. But if the Earth warms, CO2 will follow that warming. It doesn't lead it. And Al Gore tried to say it leads it, therefore it's a cause. That's totally wrong. Totally wrong.
So we're just about out of time, but would it suffice it to say maybe that when the government's paying for the studies come out to the for the results that the government is looking for?
Yes, I think there's been corruption in academia. They've closed off. I know some really respectable scientists who try to get published in what they call the golden journals of climate science, and they get turned down for no reason given other than their results produced gave a different answer than the climate journals wanted to receive. So they're told we're not going to publish, but then they won't give them an answer. And the reason is if they give them an answer, that'll lead to an argument, and then they start looking like fools that didn't have a real good reason for turning them down to begin with. So there's corruption that goes on that way. But fortunately, we do have other journals that publish, and there's a lot of good stuff out there that's contrarian, that's very good, very solid physics, that supports all the founding principles before the modeling came along. And that's what's really important for the audience to understand. We didn't invent something new with climate models. They tried to disprove what was already established, and they failed. The founding principles still hold. They haven't been disproven. They just supplanted them with models, and they say, well, CO2 does control things. It's a bunch of rubbish, absolute rubbish.
Absolutely.
And you can take these guys on, and I have. I've taken them on to show how wrong this all is. But that's unfortunately, where we're at in the scientific community.
Yes.
And maybe some of these people, I think some of these people, when they retire, if they've had university professorships, they start telling the truth because I think their conscience gets to them. But you can't do that if you're employed in academia. You'll lose your job, and I've seen it happen. They have
because they rake you over the coals for that.
They do, because they're making too much money off of promoting the hysteria. It's just disgusting. Like I said, I think this is the biggest scam, one of the biggest of the last 100 years financially. The amount of money the taxpayers have been ripped off for, and how these green programs aren't going to accomplish a single stated objective. And I'll stand by that, because they won't. You're not going to see CO2 levels going down from any of these green programs. And I always ask that question. How's the CO2 level doing with all the green energy you've implemented? Still going up. Looks like the trajectory hasn't changed a bit. So what do you got to say about that? And then you get crickets.
Yes. And that's why I had you here on the program, Chuck, because you take these idiots on, you prove them wrong. Of course, they're too stupid to realize they're wrong. Oh no, you're talking about a crowd that you clearly show them that the sky is blue. You tell them that the sky is blue. You can even grab them by the back of their head, grab them by the hair, pull them up, look, the sky is blue, and they're gonna look you in the eye and say, no, it's green. So,
yeah. And for that, when you do that to somebody who's got enough of a background, and then you get that sort of an answer, that proves their motivation is politically driven, not scientific. It's a political motivation, and there's a big difference. And it's terrible that they've let the political motivation supersede science. We should have never gone there. It's bringing us back towards the dark ages to let that happen to science, where politics starts interfering with it.
Well, Chuck, we have a website scrolling in the ticker there, but if somebody wants to find out more about you, of course, the website we have is co2coalition.org. I believe that is. I have to see it again as it goes by. But you mentioned another website where people can follow up with you.
Yeah, most of the work that I've done to counter a lot of this nonsense is at edberry.com. That's EDBERRY.com. I'm a climate author there, along with some other very good, respectable scientists. And Ed is the first guy that came along since the IPCC started this stuff about climate change and invented a carbon model, which is easier to do than an atmospheric one. And he came to the conclusion, along with several other papers written that produced the same result in a different way. And that's where this idea is being disproven, that human emissions of CO2 are responsible for 100% of the increase since the start of the Industrial Revolution. Barry goes into that in great detail in his paper. It's a great read. And I encourage people to go there. Another good site, What's Up With That, WATTSUP, WITH, whatsupwiththat.com, but it's not WHAT, it's WATT. What's Up With That? Anthony Watts has a lot of credible people published. Then, of course, the CO2 Coalition does a pretty good job with the climate stuff as well.
All right. Well, Chuck, God bless you. Thank you very much for your time. And of course, we'll be keeping in touch, and this we'll have you on again in the future.
Sounds good. Well, glad to talk to you guys. Haven't talked to you in a while, so take care. Enjoy the rest of your summer, and maybe we'll talk again in the fall or something.
Absolutely.
Maybe after the elections, we'll either have something happy to talk about then, or maybe we'll be drowning in our tears. Who knows?
We'll see what happens.
The prior over the latter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in to Patriot Confederation. God save the Republic of the United States of America.
Events of recent history indicate that Americans are setting a course for the end of their own great nation. The ever-growing trend in this country is to judge people not by their individual character, but by their identity as a member of a specific group. No one has ever succeeded or failed in life as a result of their group affiliation. A person's success or failure is also not based on luck, but on the sum total of the decisions that they have made. Those who succeed do so through good work ethic and the wise use of their power to choose. The opposite is true of those who fail. The ideals of individual accountability and responsibility in the United States are dying every day. A gun cannot be responsible for a death, just as a shovel cannot be responsible for digging a ditch. Both are only tools and have no will of their own. Responsibility is an adjunct of conscious choice and is the price we pay for freedom. Freedom is also a tool. It's an essential tool that is needed by human beings if they are to prosper rather than to merely survive. Yet there are those who would rather trade their freedom for security. Some believe that it is the responsibility of government to provide freedom. In truth, we form government to ensure and protect the freedom that is already inherently ours.